Film is a thin veil. Viewing through this medium may distort, conceal, capture, or erase. And that is exactly how it's been used by capitalists for the last century. Film is a membrane of manipulation, one where the viewer may remain safe and ignorant of the sacrifice it demands, but therein lies the harm. Nearly every character in Nope embodies these veils in one way or another, whether in the things that they do or the items that they wear. You could do an entire analysis here focused on t-shirts alone. Michael Jordan, a bison, the Scorpion King, and post-punk anti-establishment gods, Mr. Bungle, Rage Against the Machine, and the Jesus Lizard. Ricky's co-star wears a veil to hide her trauma. The same trauma Ricky hides behind a hidden wall in his office and witnessed through the filter of a green tablecloth. OJ uses the hood of his sweater to bait the entity. Angel is saved by a blue tarp that he uses to anchor himself to the land in barbed wire. Previous to that, him and Antler's Holst are under the cover of a camouflage tent, and when we first meet Antlers, he is shrouded in black, flowing hood and clothing, a literal manifestation of the film medium, and the entity conceals itself in a cloud, but is also a shape-shifting membrane on its own. There are only a handful of instances where these veils are removed, and a few in which the fourth wall is broken altogether. My favorite unveiling is when Antlers leaves the protection of the tent to face the entity head-on, sacrificing himself to the impossible, and letting go of capital, surmounting the peak of his jadedness, something the film industry has molded him into. The viewer's veil is broken in the slow shot of Gordy approaching Ricky hiding under the table. Gordy squares up with the camera and tediously approaches, breaching the tablecloth and breaking the fourth wall in order to make contact with someone he sees in himself. The first rule of screen acting is to never look into the camera, acknowledging the viewer. Psychological and ethological study has taught us that when an animal knows it's being observed or being held in captivity, it behaves differently. The entire film revolves around not looking it in the eye, whether it is a horse, a camera, or a Lovecraftian elder divinity. Beyond Gordy, I love the nod to the praying mantis under the scrutiny of the security camera to help drive this point. What do we think we know about the praying mantis? We are familiar with the notion of the female eating her mates. Even Emerald threatens to eat it at one point. However, this almost exclusively happens in a lab setting. Of course they would eat their mate. It's an easy food source when held in captivity. In the wild, this behavior is not observed nearly as frequently. OJ says he hasn't seen one of those in a dog's age, alluding to the idea that the mantis is behaving in a way that is somehow out of the ordinary. Again, when captured, the narrative changes on the identity and behavior of an animal. This is plainly reflected in the behavior of Gordy, the horses, Emerald, and the entity itself when Jupe attempts to tame it and capitalize on its capture. So, is it possible to capture natural behavior by film or otherwise? In this movie, it is only in the death of the entity that it reveals itself to the Winkenwell, and a photo is developed, no different than Antler's footage of rare animal attacks. Hollywood has made its living on capturing and sensationalizing similar traumas. There were 3 gold rushes: imperial-led slavery, the colonial extraction of resources, and the media exploitation of each other. Ricky continues to push this narrative by attempting to capitalize on his own trauma, extending the life of the shoe that never drops. He even continues to exploit his disfigured co-star by introducing her as such, something that hasn't been true in 2 or 3 decades. He is literally flogging a dead horse, and what does his first crush look like? A dead horse, which she is contrasted against in the belly of the beast. He mythologized his own trauma, but I'm still unsure as to what he feared the most. Did he fear Gordy? Did he fear that he had outlived his usefulness as a token Asian caricature? Or did he fear the most that Gordy had seen him as a familiar? He grows up to secure himself as the star of a theme park, on land that is not even his to claim, but still lives in pensive fear. He can't even talk about his own lived experience, but relies on parody of Saturday Night Live and Mad Magazine, media outlets who have made their millions through the satirizing of trauma. The news media is also demonstrated as complicit in such activities. It is not until Antler sees the event on TV that he has an interest in documenting it for himself. They said there was no foul play, which we know from witnessing the aftermath is complete horseshit. They capitalize on the mystery of death to pique the curiosity of the audience. I have big appreciation for the subtle parallel drawn to Cape Canaveral without any mention at all of the Challenger disaster of '86. Space exploration has always been a spectacle to behold, where astronauts were sacrificed in the name of the greater good, the imperialistic expansion of scientific industry. Similar to the colonial takeover of the West by gold rush or genocide, sacrificing a nation for capital in affirmation of a singular worldview. There are heavy nods to the land we are on throughout the film, and that we are all the true trespassers. The chief's head coin on Jupe's office wall, as well as Angel's character who continuously shows up without invitation to the Haywood Ranch, even being told that he doesn't live there. But he does. This is the home of his ancestors, and it is only by physically anchoring himself to the land that saves him from being consumed by the viewer. What I also find interesting are the characters that are mentioned without really appearing. Oprah, Michael Jordan, The Rock, and O.J. Simpson. Like Otis, these are people of color that have been given a pass by the media, people who have, in a way, sacrificed some of their blackness for their prosperity, similar to how Ricky distanced himself from the Asian film caricature for a very non-stereotypical role, a cowboy. In this way, these identities sustain their usefulness beyond what these social grounds would dictate. There is still value in origins. Much as Antlers had to revert to using an IMAX film reel as opposed to digital for his work with OJ and Emerald, just like the key stabbing Ghost in the ass, the answers to our collective survival are in what is ancestral, because the balloon of imperial capitalism is on the verge of bursting. So the next time you engage with media, whatever it may be, are you going to turn a blind eye and just say, nope? Or are you going to challenge it? Hear the stories that have been untold, the voices that have been silenced or distorted. Consume or be consumed. Sweet screams.